We're picking up in the chapter Horace Slughorn, a couple pages in, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages or so in. Around 65, I guess. No, take that back. 59 or so. Harry asks Dumbledore, why can't we just apparate directly into your old colleague's house? Because Dumbledore explains, Harry's going to hold his hand or hold onto his arm and etc. to the town and then walk. Dumbledore, because it would be quite as rude as kicking down the front door. Courtesy dictates that we offer fellow wizards the opportunity of denying us entry. Okay? Before he says anything else, stop for a moment. Think of that image, because it would be quite as rude as kicking down the front door. Is that similar to anything we saw in book 4? Immediately goes, well, yes. What?
Arthur.
Yeah, when they use flu powder to arrive at the Weasleys. Because think about it from a Muggle perspective. Let's say their wall isn't walled up, or the fireplace isn't walled up. So they've got a fireplace surrounded by the wall and stuff, and all of a sudden 4 wizards show up in your fireplace. Kind of like apparating in the middle of the room, right? Okay? Dumbledore says that's rude. So Arthur's, according to the narrator, according to Vernon's thinking, Arthur is trying to teach Vernon how to be considerate of others. And yet he just shows up in the wall and blows a hole in the wall? Interesting. Dumbledore, courtesy dictates that we offer fellow wizards the opportunity of denying us entry. Then he says, oh, and by the way, most wizards have magical protection so that you can't just apparate into their houses. Notice, obviously, Muggles don't. The Dursleys had what kind of protection? Oh, I never thought about that before. Yeah. Why did the Dursleys wall up their fireplace? Is it just a renovation that, they were no longer using it? Or, possibility, thought never occurred to me until just then. Do they know about the flu network?
Petunia might.
Petunia might.
Maybe their house was connected when her sister was.
When her sister was still alive?
Oh, the letters. When the letters in the first book came through, didn't they?
Letters came down through the fireplace. Just seal it all. Interesting. And I hadn't remembered that. Good point. Okay, so why the little emphasis on courtesy? Here is a Gryffindor. What marks Gryffindors? Boldness, daring, courage, and, we're told, chivalry. Okay? Courtesy, the idea of courtesy, is at the heart of chivalry. Courtesy means behavior of the court. Why? Because the court, or the locus of government, if you want, is the heart of the society. This is kind of going back to the Middle Ages. Don't think, please God, no. Don't say Washington, D.C. is the heart of American behavior and stuff, because otherwise we'd all be cutthroats. The behavior at court, the respect, nobility, loyalty, faith, etc., one shows to each other, okay, is supposed to be the model that one follows, okay? Chivalry, by the way, is related to the word cavalry and French chevalier. It refers to a knight on horseback. The whole thrust of chivalry, in terms of its, really? its ethical purposes. Start getting here on time, guys. If I close the door from now on out, it's staying closed. Its ethical purposes are always directed outward. Its emphasis is always on the other. Okay? Helping somebody else, essentially. Okay? So, one other point to this chapter, and then we're going to go on. Here he notices, next page, Dumbledore's hand. He points. And here he says, what happened to your no time, thrilling tale, wish to do it justice? Okay? What did Snape tell Bellatrix and Narcissa in the opening, in the second chapter? Spinner's End. He said, Dumbledore has suffered a grievous injury after his duel with the Dark Lord. The duel with the Dark Lord, he said, kind of rattled his nerves, Dumbledore's nerves. And since then, he suffered a grievous injury. Okay? So, skip the rest of that chapter. We're not going to talk about Slughorn and such. Because ultimately, other than the one little bit of memory they get from him, he's not important. Well, yeah, it's pretty much true. I didn't mention this part to the other class. They arrive at the Burrow, the Weasley's home, and just before Dumbledore leaves, they're talking, and this is around page, 76, 77. Here he says to Dumbledore, while I was at the Dursleys, I realized I can't shut myself away or crack up, okay? Because Dumbledore, has said it was hard for you. It was cruel. I mean, you just gotten to know Sirius. He, like a parent, and taken away from you, okay? Here he says, realize I can't shut myself away or crack up. Sirius wouldn't have wanted that, would he? Anyway, life's too short. Look at Madame Bones. Look at Emmeline Vance. Could be me next, couldn't it? Well, what's the prophecy? I mean, the upshot of the prophecy. Neither can live while the other survives. One of us has got to die. But if it is, Harry says, if it's my turn next, now looking straight into Dumbledore's blue eyes, gleaming in the wand light, I'll make sure I take as many Death Eaters with me as I can. And Voldemort too, if I can manage it. I don't know why. I got echoes of the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz saying, and her little dog too. Okay? What's he just shown us? Courage, bravery, yeah, all that. It's not really, though, because it's what? Those are just words, man. It's pure boasting. Okay? Dumbledore, spoken like your mother and father's son and Sirius's true godson. Way to go, Harry. We could jump to the end of book 7, if you want. I think I can say this without giving anything away for anybody. How many of you have read all 7 of these books? How many have not? Let me put it that way. Don't feel bad if you haven't. Okay. I'm not giving anything away. Harry doesn't kill anybody. Ever. Right? Not one. Ron doesn't kill anybody. Hermione doesn't kill anybody. Other people kill people, but not those 3. We'll talk about that why. Okay? So, Dumbledore tells him you should share everything you know with Ron and Hermione. You can trust your friends, Harry. You need them. Right? Okay. Excessive phlegm. Who's phlegm? What's phlegm? I've got a lot. Whatever this crud is, it's not going away. Fleur, right? Why do they call Fleur phlegm? I mean, Fleur's a knockout. Why refer to her as spit? Because that's kind of what phlegm is. Why is Fleur there?
She's in a relationship with Bill Weasley.
Oh, that's so namby-pamby way of putting it. What kind of relationship is she in with Bill Weasley?
They're engaged?
They're engaged. I mean, let's brass tacks. Let's use real words. They're engaged. Who's happy about this engagement? Fleur, Bill, and Fleur and Bill. Really, nobody else. I mean, Harry, Fred, George, Ron, Charlie, maybe, I don't know. Arthur, probably, like looking at Fleur. They just don't like Fleur to be talking. Okay? Why? This isn't really important. I'm just, how did she come across? Stuck up?
Snobby?
Snobby? Flighty? Little in between the ears, Airheady, maybe? What are we going to learn, though, about Fleur?
She's not any of those things.
She's not any of those things, okay? There's more depth to her than there appears. We get their owl results. Harry does fairly well, except, of course, in History of Magic, because what happened in his History of Magic owl? Vision and such. And divination, obviously. Draco's detour. So they go off to Hogsmeade. Harry follows Draco. They go into the Fred and George's shop and such. We're not going to talk about what Harry sees in Borgin and Burke's when he spies on Draco. Chapter 7, the Slug Club. Is the Slug Club for the purposes of the plot of this novel or the purposes of the remaining story, book 7, for those of you who've read it? Is the Slug Club important? Not really. It's like Spew. She introduces it for what purpose? What is it? Very briefly.
It's a code, and the main point basically is that Riddle was in it.
Okay.
That was really the only thing that.
Okay. Riddle was in it back when Slughorn was a professional previously. What else? Why was Tom Riddle in it? Why is Ginny in it? Why is Zabinski, whatever his name, in it? Why is McClagan in it?
Because they're
Go ahead.
because there are students who he thinks are going to do extremely well in the wizarding world, and he likes being associated with like famous people and well-off people.
Exactly. It's his way of networking. If he gets in tight with these students who are going to go on and leave Hogwarts and become famous, important people, he will then have what? He'll have an entree. He'll have a connection with these people. That's all it's for. It's about networking. Okay? And because we find out Riddle was in it earlier. Okay? Why is Ginny in it?
She's like an extremely good Quidditch player.
Is that the reason?
Yeah.
No, it's because of her double bet bogey hex. She's good at hexes. She's really good at hexes. Okay? So, he wants Harry in it. And Harry goes to the little meeting, and then he goes off and goes into the Slytherin compartment, or the compartment at least where Harry is, and he slides in with his invisibility cloak on. What happens at the end of the chapter?
Draco finds out Harry's in there, and
Right, because the invisibility cloak slips off for a moment, and Draco sees. Why is Harry in there?
just spy on Draco.
He's to spy on Draco, okay? And what does Draco do?
Hex him after everybody gets off the train.
After everybody leaves the compartment, okay, he uses impedimenta, so Harry freezes, he falls off the luggage compartment, which is in a train compartment, which is up about this high. So he's frozen, falls on the ground, and then what does Draco do? It's an image famous from Orwell's 1984.
He puts the cloak back over him.
He stomps on his face. Harry lies on his back, crushes his nose, blood starts to splurt, okay? And says, "That's from my father. Don't reckon they'll find you till the train's back in London." Well, where is dear old father?
In Azkaban.
With all the other Death Eaters that were captured at the Ministry of Magic, okay? Snape victorious. Who rescues Harry?
You know?
Linda?
Nope. Tonks.
Oh, yeah.
Tonks realizes Harry didn't get off is missing. She finds Harry. Okay. She walks him up to the school, page 160 or so, and kind of delivers him to Snape. Why is Snape there? Because he noticed Harry didn't get off the Hogwarts Express. She delivers him to Snape, and we're told, again, somewhere around 160, middle of the long paragraph that begins, Snape did not speak. Whatever Dumbledore said, Harry had had time to think over the summer, and had concluded that Snape's snide remarks to Sirius about remaining safely hidden while the rest of the Order of the Phoenix were fighting Voldemort had probably been a powerful factor in Sirius rushing off to the Ministry the night that he had died. Okay? So between the time that Sirius died and now, Harry's been thinking, from the time Harry had his conversation with Dumbledore after the Ministry to now, Harry's been thinking about everything Dumbledore said and Dumbledore's kind of excuse for why Snape didn't act sooner and such. And he's thinking, what about why Sirius came to the Ministry? Why did Sirius go to the Ministry of Magic? I'm asking you, not what Harry thinks. Why did Sirius go to the Ministry of Magic?
To save Harry?
To save Harry. Okay? How did he know? How did he know Harry was at the Ministry of Magic?
Snape told him?
Snape told the Order. Okay? So, that's why it says, whatever Dumbledore said, that means, notwithstanding what Dumbledore said, the reason Sirius went was what? What had Snape been suggesting, implying to Sirius, apparently all during the last year, when Sirius was cooped up at number 12 Grimmauld Place? That he was safe there, right? He didn't go out and have to do the hard work that the Order of the Phoenix was doing. Why was Sirius cooped up at the headquarters?
Because he was a wanted criminal.
Good reason. And Dumbledore's orders. Okay? So why is Harry thinking now the only reason Sirius went, or the main reason Sirius went, was because Snape kept goading him? What does that remove from Harry?
Harry's fault.
Guilt? Fault? Why does Harry have guilt, or what is Harry's fault?
He went to the Ministry of Magic, and that's what got Sirius Black killed.
Why did he go to the Ministry of Magic?
Because he thought Sirius Black was there.
Because he thought Sirius was already there. What gave him that idea?
Voldemort gave him the vision.
Literally Voldemort. Okay? If you remember that scene back in the Order of the Phoenix, they're in Umbridge's office, and Hermione's trying to get Harry to see or understand what? She tells Harry, you have a blank complex. Savior complex. You've always got to save people, Harry. You know, Philosopher's Stone, Ginny, Sirius, Cedric's body, you know, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, no, I don't. So Hermione in that scene tells Harry they need what? You know, you're supposed to be practicing occlumency. You're supposed to be stopping these visions. You want them. You need what before we go? Proof, right? We need to know that Sirius is there. What proof do they get? Who do they talk to? Creature. What's Creature say? He's not here. True or false? False. He was lying. Okay? But Harry doesn't know that Creature is lying. Harry doesn't believe that Creature is lying. Harry thinks Creature's telling him the truth. Why? Because what Creature says reaffirms the vision that Harry has had. What should Harry know about these visions? Or what should he think about these visions? Does he know they're coming from Voldemort? No, not necessarily. Where else has he had, I'm trying to think how to put this, visions of sorts? Of sorts is really important.
Kind of the Dementors?
Okay, possibly. Memories.
The diary.
The diary.
Dreams.
Dreams. How many of you act 100% on what your dreams tell you? Please tell me no. The diary turned out to be what? A total lie. And it was Voldemort. Okay? Pensive. He sees memories in the pensive. Harry clung to this notion because it enabled him to blame Snape. Notice the cause and effect. He clings to this idea. Why? Snape's at fault. It enables him. It's like without this notion, he can't blame Snape. Why does he want to blame Snape? Book 1 forward, right? Snape's rotten. He's mean. And yet, what does Harry now know? At least a little bit about Snape. What did Harry see in the pensive? Or even before then, what did Harry see when he and Snape were having occlumency lessons and Harry used the Protego charm that one time?
He saw his father and Sirius bullying Snape.
In one memory? You've conflated two different memories. He saw Snape, or a boy, cowering in a corner as a man yelled at a woman. The woman was crying and the boy was, okay? He saw the same boy, a little bit older, lying on a bed in a dark room with a single light bulb shining, bzz, bzz, zapping flies. Okay? Later on, he's going to see something else. Okay? In his when he goes into the pensive. But I'm not talking about that scene necessarily, or at least not yet. What does he experience when he sees Snape as the little boy cowering in the corner? Louder. Pity. Snape's had a hard life, right? Kind of like Harry. When he sees the image in the pensive, when he sees Snape's worst memory in the pensive, what does he see? I'm not asking what is the worst memory yet. He sees Snape, he sees Lupin, he sees his mother, he sees his father, he sees his godfather. What does he see his father and godfather do to Snape? How? Literally, what do they do to him that we also saw done in book 4?
Don't they hang him upside down and like?
When they hang him upside down so that his robe falls under, notice, he's not wearing pants or jeans underneath. So all they see is his underwear, and they make a joke about he ought to change his underwear more often. What did we see in book 4? A whole group of Death Eaters holding the Roberts family up in the air and turning Mrs. Roberts upside down to reveal her voluminous drawers, as it is described. And we're told there, when Ron asked, why do they do that? And Mr. Weasley said, it's their idea of fun. And Ron says, that's sick. That's really sick. Harry just saw his father and godfather acting like Death Eaters. Great man, your father, wasn't he? Snape says. What has just happened to Harry's ideal? His idol. Boom. Dad was an ass. Dad was a jerk, or the word that they used in the British, version, a burk. It's like even worse than a jerk and an ass. Okay? He was an effing idiot, kind of. All right? So, when he assumes or thinks Sirius did this, he went off to the ministry because of all the nasty things Snape had said to him. It enabled him to blame Snape, which felt satisfying. Why? Because he no longer has to kind of identify with Snape. He no longer has to empathize with Snape. What did Frodo say about Gollum? I do not pity him. Gandalf says, you haven't seen him. And now that I do see him, chapter Mount Doom, yet I do pity him. Not Frodo. Harry hasn't had any pity for Snape until that scene in book 5. And now he's wrestling with that. And so he goes on. And also because he knew that if anyone was not sorry that Sirius was dead, it was the man now striding next to him in the darkness. Notice, we're told he knew that was the case. Is that literally true? No, not. He believes that's the case. Did Snape want Sirius to die? Want. Desire his death? No. Did Snape hate Sirius? Yes, he did. He did not like Sirius. He did not think they should both be in the Order of the Phoenix. It's like, Dumbledore, choose one, you know. And yet, throughout that year, they seemingly buried the hatchet, not in each other's backs. They put it in its sheath. And each did the task Dumbledore gave them to do. Okay? So, Snape takes points from Harry. How? McGonagall didn't take points from Harry and Ron, or points from Gryffindor from Harry and Ron in book 2, when they didn't arrive by the Hogwarts Express. What's the difference? When they arrived, the feast was just starting there. Here, the feast has already occurred. In other words, term had begun by the time Harry arrived. Here, it hadn't begun there. And we're told, the fury and hatred bubbling inside Harry seemed to blaze white hot. But he would rather have been immobilized all the way back to London than tell Snape why he was late. You think it would have mattered? Draco immobilized me and stomped on my face. Maybe he wouldn't have had 50 points taken off. So why doesn't he tell him? What would Harry be admitting? Defeat. Literally defeat, Malfoy got the upper hand or foot on him. Okay? Why is the title of the chapter Snape Victorious? Is that Snape's victory?
He finally got the position he wanted.
He's defense against the dark arts teacher. Because when Dumbledore says, let me introduce our new teacher, Horace Slughorn, who will be teaching potions. Wait, Snape teaches potions. Chapter 9, Half-Blood Prince. 171 to about 173, 174 maybe. McGonagall's going over their schedules. Okay? Because although they've gotten their owls, they don't know at this point exactly what their courses are going to be. Okay? McGonagall being head of Gryffindor, she goes over the courses with sixth-year Gryffindor students based on how they did. So she's talking with Neville. And we find out Neville did really well in Defense Against the Dark Arts. Why? Because Dolores Jane Umbridge is such a good teacher? No, because Harry is. Okay? But Transfiguration, not so well. Only gets an acceptable. She says you can't take your newts. You can't take another year of Transfiguration. He hangs his head. She's like, why? You're no good at it, Neville. Why do you want to continue? Oh, my grandmother. Humph! It's high time your grandmother learned to be proud of the grandson she's got, rather than the one she thinks she ought to have. But she doesn't stop there. Because what would be the effect if she just stopped there?
He would still be kind of ashamed about it.
Because
It's like saying he was a bad grandson.
he doesn't live up to her ideal. So what does McGonagall do? She pauses for dramatic effect and then goes on. Particularly after what happened at the ministry. Well, what happened at the ministry? Neville did what? Come on, this isn't rocket science.
He fought.
Keep going. Who,
Death
Harry?
Eaters.
He fought with a group of other students, a bunch of Death Eaters, fully qualified wizards. He was at the end of his 5th year. This is Neville Longbottom we're talking about. More importantly, we know this, okay, because we've read it. Neville knows this. Harry knows this. I don't know that McGonagall knows this. In the kind of climactic scene, back in the death room, before Dumbledore shows up, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville are all there fighting. Luna, Ginny are all fighting. Harry has the prophecy in his hand. What does he do with it? Anybody remember? Neville. And he throws it to Neville. Neville catches it. It ends up breaking. He does catch it. He holds on to it. And I think later on he drops it. Okay? Not his fault. Why is that important?
Clumsy, usually.
Okay, because he's usually clumsy. That's like a seeker's catch. Okay? Why else? Think of the scene in the Department of Mysteries, the Hall of Prophecy. Okay? Who removes it from the wall or from the shelf? Harry does. Okay? What happened earlier in the book to Broderick Bode? Broderick Bode, a minister of magic worker who worked in the Hall of Prophecies, who was put under an imperious curse and ordered to do what? Anybody remember? to remove the prophecy. Okay? And what happened when he touched it? His mind was confounded. Okay? We're told by Rookwood in the scene that Harry has a vision. He couldn't have done that. He couldn't have gotten the prophecy. Why? Only the people a prophecy or person a prophecy is about can touch the prophecy. Harry picks it up. It doesn't do anything to him. Harry throws it to Neville. It doesn't do anything to him. Showing that what Dumbledore tells Harry about the prophecy is true. The prophecy could be about two boys, Harry Potter or Neville Longbottom. Why is it about Harry? There's one reason.
Is that you marked him as an equal?
Because Voldemort made a choice. That's it. Does Harry understand that at the end of book 5? No. Does Harry understand that through most of this book? No. It's going to take till trying to see if I can find the page where I've got it marked in here. It's going to take to about, nope, not there, just before the lightning struck Tower, when Harry and Dumbledore will have a conversation. And it finally sinks in. Okay, why it's Harry and not Neville. So, McGonagall goes on. Why is she doing this? Why is she having this conversation with Harry? I don't mean just about his schedule. The emphasis on what he did at the ministry. Neville turns, we're told the next sentence, Neville turns very pink and blinked confusedly. Why? Because the narrator tells us McGonagall has never complimented Neville before. It's the 6th book. He's nearly done. And she's never said, well done, Neville. I'm sorry, Longbottom. Cannot let you. No, you can't. Take charms. My grandmother thinks charms is a soft option. Take charms, she says. And I shall drop Augusta, not your grandmother. She called her by her first name. Why? I think there's 2 reasons possible.
She was a student of hers.
That's the important one. First name basis and student. What does Dumbledore call Voldemort in the battle in book 5? Tom. He doesn't call him your lordship, your mightyship, your greatness, your... And the one thing I wish she had done, I really wish Rowling had done this, is that Dumbledore had called him Tommy. Because what's the difference between Tom and Tommy?
Tommy's like the name of a little boy.
Tommy's the diminutive form. You add the E on the ending, Teddy. You know, when my mom was still alive and I was 50 years old, she'd still call me Teddy. It was like, stop it, you know. Okay? What would it do?
Really demean him.
It'd pull out the little high chair to put him in. It would really demean him. Okay? We're going to see later on in here a memory, and he's going to say, what are you here for, Tom? And Voldemort's going to go, oh, that just really bothers me when you do that. Okay? Take charms. And I shall drop Augusta a line reminding her that just because she failed her charms, Owl, the subject is not necessarily worthless. How did he do in charms? He got an outstanding, if I remember correctly. Not pass. Outstanding. Okay? If this were the United States and they had to follow, the Federal Higher Education Act, she just violated a major law of that act. It's called FERPA, the Federal Educational Rights Protection Rights in a Protection of Privacy Act. One of your parents calls me to bitch or complain about how you're doing in this class and says, I need to know how Tom, whatever, did on this exam. I would say, I wouldn't literally say buzz off, but I'd say buzz off. I can't answer that. None of your business. Why? Because you're all over the age of 18. Only way I could is if you signed a form that said you can give my parents information, but none of you would be dumb enough to do that. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe some of you have. So, why does she do that? Why do I just spend 5 minutes talking about that? Or 10. What's she doing for Neville? Sticking up, she's building him up. Why? Because rolling is starting. Beginning with book 5, the buildup of Neville. Because we're going to see Neville do something in book 7 that's going to be very, Harry Potter-ish. Very fulfilling prophecy-ish. Okay? In a sense. He doesn't fulfill any prophecy in that sense. Okay? Snape goes on and talks about the dark arts, and he talks about the dark arts like a lover. And they're like, ew, this is just, But what's his point in that little conversation? He says they're eternal, they're unchanging, they're mutable. Therefore, if they're going to defend themselves, what must they do? What must they be? Flexible. You can't go into a fight with a dark wizard thinking you're going to what?
When?
Do you want to go into a fight with a dark wizard thinking I'm screwed, I'm going to lose?
No.
No. Every contest, what do you want to have at least 51% of? Hope. I'm going to win this one. Yay, me. You got to be flexible. You got to, what? Move with the flow of the game, so to speak. Football, soccer, is called the beautiful game. Why? Because while there can be set plays on kicks, direct kicks, indirect kicks, and things like that, the rest of the game, it just constantly moves. It's like hockey. It doesn't stop. You can position things, but you never know how it's going to work. Okay? You've got to treat the dark arts the same way. How do we know that that's what's meant? What did Harry say when Ron and Hermione tried to talk him into teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts? Anybody remember what his initial response was? You don't know what it's like, he says. You can't just go in there having memorized a bunch of stuff, thinking like it's going down a checklist. Okay? He says, everything that you just said I did, I had help with. Which is kind of interesting because earlier in that same book, when he finds out that Ron was made head prefect, what thoughts go through Harry's mind?
How come I didn't make prefect?
Yeah. Where was Ron when I saved the Philosopher's Stone? It's kind of like forget about the chess match. Where was Ron when I went into the Chamber of Secrets? Where was Ron when I saved Sirius? Where was Ron? It's all on the me then, and yet when he's trying to counter their argument, it's I had help from all these other people and things. The point there, both of those, is Harry needs his friends, as Dumbledore told him when he arrived at the Burrow. Okay? So, Snape's point partially is it's not just memorizing spells, folks. You have to know what? When to use the right spell. Why were they? At the very least, you have to say, Harry and the other members of the DA in the Ministry of Magic, who won the battle with the Death Eaters? Just between the DA and the Death Eaters. it was a draw, right? It was pretty much a tie. What made the good side victorious? Sirius, Lupin, Snape, Voldemort, not Voldemort, Dumbledore, sorry. I'm going to be in St. Mungo's before I know it. Man. So, they go on to potions, and Harry gets a book from the bookcase. What does it have inscribed in the back?
This book is property of the Half-Blood Prince.
Book is the property of the Half-Blood Prince. Okay? They start to talk about that later on. House of Gaunt, going on. Harry has his first lesson with Dumbledore. What is Harry's prior experience of private lessons with teachers?
Not great.
His most previous lessons were not great, right? Who did he have who did he have private lessons with previous year?
No, it was
No, Umbridge.
Umbridge.
Really? Private lessons with Umbridge?
Yeah.
No. Who did he have private lessons with? Snape. How well did he learn occlumency? Not at all. Why? Because Snape's a bad teacher? No, that's not the reason. You walk into a class that you know you're going to hate. I mean, no. From the beginning. It's a material you just absolutely detest, but you have to take it. For me, math. Literally true. I didn't actually ever have to take any math course in college, because I took a logic course instead. Because philosophy, I can BS that stuff. 8 hours a day, okay? Trig, calculus, I got to geometry in high school. That was it, okay? Even though I can do numbers in my head and stuff. What was Harry's problem?
He didn't keep an open mind.
He didn't keep an open mind, possibly. What else?
He went into it knowing it wasn't gonna be good.
Why?
He doesn't like Snape. And
The teacher was everything. How many of you, before you register for a class, get on, rate my professor? Okay? We didn't have those back when I was a student. All we knew was, yeah, so-and-so is fair, not fair, that kind of thing. But you can get on now and you can look up stuff about any professor you want. Okay? Harry didn't need to do that, did he? He knew from book one, Snape hates his guts. Yes, Snape protected him, but Snape hated him. And the feeling was mutual. So, did he try? Did Harry ever really try to learn occlumency? What do I mean by try? Say, you have some talent. Basketball. You're not bad. What does it take, and I hate this phrase because it's used all too often in business and universities. What does it take to go to the next level? Practice. What does Harry not do?
practice.
How do you practice occlumency? You go, Ron, try to read my mind. No. What is the practice that Snape gives him? Try this, by the way. Because it's real world kind of stuff. Try to clear your mind. Clear it of everything. If you clear it of everything, what state are you kind of in that Harry was temporarily put in book 4? Like he feels when false Moody, puts him under the Imperious Curse. Everything's just gone. State of peace, utter bliss. Harry has problems with that, right? Why? Well, partially because there's Snape, who, as Ron would say, is an ugly git, or as the Marauders would say, all that other stuff. He can't. He's got too much in his past to do that. Okay? So, 2 years before, previous lessons did really well with Lupin. What's the difference between Lupin and Snape? Other than the obvious ones. Lupin's kind of cool. Not cool in the sense that Sirius is cool. Sirius is like Fred and George on steroids. Cool. And James Dean, all rolled up into a ball. So, Harry goes off to lessons with Dumbledore. And Dumbledore tells him, just a couple pages in, 3 pages in, I've decided it's time, now that you know what prompted Lord Voldemort to try and kill you 15 years ago, for you to be given certain information. Harry, you said you were going to tell me everything at the end of last term. This is around 196, 197. You said you were going to tell me everything at the end of the last term. Okay, Dumbledore just said, notice, it's time for me to give you certain information. All right? You said at the end of last term you were going to tell me everything. Dumbledore. And so I did. Isn't there a disconnect there? Those 2 statements cannot be true. I'm going to give you some information. Well, I told you everything last year. So what kind of information is left out of everything? I told you everything I know. True or false?
False.
Yeah. When we get to the end of book 7, Dumbledore is lying through his teeth. Okay? From this point forth, we'll be leaving the firm foundation of fact and journeying together through the murky marshes of memory into thickets of wildest guesswork. So he's saying, from here on out, I'm going to tell you information that is guesswork. But it's not, is it? He calls it murky memory. Jump ahead for a moment. They go into Morphin Gaunt's memory. They see a whole bunch of stuff. Is it murky? Is it unclear around the edges? Is it kind of like looking through a lens that's had Vaseline smeared over it so you can't really make things out? No, it's pretty clear. When we go into Mrs. Cole's memory, it's pretty, or into Dumbledore's memory, it's pretty clear. But what's he saying? That's not fact. Why? Because memories are filtered. They're filtered through these, for one thing, because they're created by what you see. And what you see isn't always what is real or what is the whole truth. Later on, Harry is going to listen in on a conversation in the chapter Slug Club, I think. No, Unbreakable Vow. And what's his experience going to be of what he overhears? He's going to assume that everything he has heard is both true and complete. And yet, what do we know about eavesdropping? Lord of the Rings and these.
It only gives you partial information.
It gives you partial information, and you have to interpret what you've heard. And if book 5 teaches us anything, what does it teach us about interpreting eavesdropped conversations?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Who heard the prophecy? Who did the prophecy come to? The prophecy, the big one. It came to Trelawney, right? Trelawney related it to Dumbledore. Okay? Oh, sorry, can't go there yet, can I? Shoot. So, Harry and Dumbledore talk about the memory. So they go down Bob Ogden's memory lane, and we see the house, the Gaunt house, okay, where Marvolo Gaunt lives with his two children, Morphin and Merope. And Harry watches everything in the pensive. Stay. Where have we seen the pensive before? Two places, right? Or two times at least. Book 4, Harry sees it in Dumbledore's office. He notices this glowing light. He's attracted to it. He goes, he looks, he sees this like stone bowl with filmy stuff moving around, and he looks closer, and it starts to take shape, and he looks closer, and his nose touches, and he goes in. And he witnesses the trial scenes, right? Ludo Bagman, Barty Crouch Jr., Bellatrix Lestrange, etc. Okay? Book 5, what does he see? Snape's history. Okay? So, they're going into another memory. They come out, they also see a muggle with his girlfriend, darling, Cecilia, and then they come out. Page 211. Dumbledore says, that's enough, Harry, let's come back out. Harry, notice his first question. What happened to the girl in the cottage? Why does he ask about the girl in the cottage? What did he see that happened to the girl in the cottage?
Her father tried to strangle her.
Okay, what else? So abuse, physical abuse, a lot of verbal abuse, right? Okay. From just the father and brother. Why? Just because she's there? Because she's weaker than them? What did she do or show that in their minds merited that abuse? Why are we seeing the muggle in the carriage? And who is the muggle in the carriage? So, just hold those questions. What happened to the girl in the cottage? Merope, or whatever her name was. Dumbledore, she survived. And he talks about her brother, Morphin, and his father. And then he mentions Marvolo. Marvolo? That's right. Glad to see you're keeping up. Wait, that Voldemort's grandfather. Yes. Marvolo, his son Morphin, his daughter Merope were the last of the Gaunts. Very ancient wizarding family. It's a very ancient medieval English name. John of Gaunt was a father of kings. Okay, a lot of kings. He wasn't a king himself. Very ancient wizarding family, noted for a vein of instability and violence that flourished through the generations. Why? Because they married their own cousins. Why did they marry their own cousins?
Keep the bloodline pure.
Pure blood, pure Slytherin blood. Okay? Harry, so Merope, notice while Dumbledore's talking, Harry's thinking. So that's Marvolo. And Marvolo, let's see, Tom Marvolo Riddle. Did that mean, it takes him a while, Merope was Voldemort's mother? It does. You also saw a glimpse of Voldemort's father, the Muggle. Very good, Harry. That was Tom Riddle Sr. So he sees the whole happy family right here. And they ended up married? Harry's like, Get out of here. How? What's Dumbledore's explanation for their marriage? What have they just been working on in potions? The first thing they worked on in potions was Felix Felicis, right? Good luck potion. And then it's going to show up in Harry's, it's going to show up in a birthday present or Christmas present. Love potion. So he mentions, can you not think of any measure Maripé could have taken to make Tom Riddle forget his muggle companion, fall in love? Harry, imperious curse. Notice he goes to that one first. That would work, by the way. Or a love potion. Dumbledore says, yep, I think it's a love potion. Okay? Not sure it would have seemed more romantic to her. And I do not think it would have been very difficult some hot day when Riddle was riding alone for her to give him a drink of water with a love potion in it. So, what happened? He runs off with the tramp's daughter. The tramp is Marvolo, just another word for homeless person. We don't use the word tramp, well, not for homeless men anymore. So, goes on and talks about what happened. Harry, wait, she died, right? Didn't she? Voldemort was raised in an orphanage. Dumbledore says, yep, you're right. Gotta guess a bit. What is Dumbledore doing with all the guessing and all the images from all the memories? He's creating what for Harry? It's like a big puzzle. How do you put a puzzle together? What do most people, maybe you don't, try to get first? Boundaries, the edges. Then you fill it in. He's giving Harry the boundaries, and then they're going to start filling it in. Is he going to give Harry the complete, full puzzle? No, he's not. There's going to be a bunch of gaps, okay? So, he says, you got to imagine what happens. So, the squire's son runs off with the tramp's daughter, they get married, and then a few months later, he returns. Okay? About how he'd been hoodwinked, taken in. Pretending the neighbors, the people of the village, suggest that she pretended she was pregnant, and that's what made him marry her. Harry, but she was pregnant. She did have his baby. Yeah, but not until a year later. It wasn't like, they got married and he comes back after a month, and then 11 months later she has a baby. It doesn't work that way in Wizarding World either. They get married, 3 months into the marriage, she gets pregnant, and then sometime soon, relatively soon, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever months after that, he returns home. Okay? Tom Riddle left her while she was still pregnant. Again, more guesswork. He says, I think she stopped giving him the love potion. Why? What did Maripé want from Tom Riddle?
For him to love her.
Give me a phrase.
Or I guess she wanted him to love her.
How many of you are familiar with Princess Bride? Anybody? Only a few of you. What do Wesley and Buttercup have? True love, as it's put in the film. She wants him to show true love. He stops taking the love potion, and what happens? See ya! She's the tramp's daughter. Okay? Maybe she thought he would stay for the baby's sake. If so, she was wrong on both accounts. Harry. Okay. And this is important, right? This will help me with the prophecy. Everything to do with prophecy. Okay. Can I tell Ron and Hermione? Yep, that's fine. And then he notices there's an ugly gold ring sitting on this table with a large cracked stone in the middle of it. That ring? Yeah. You were wearing it when you came and got me from the Dursleys. Uh-huh. Isn't that the same ring Marvolo Gaunt showed Bob Ogden? Mm-hmm. Have you always had it? No, it came into my possession shortly before I came to fetch you. About the same time you hurt your hand. Uh-huh. How? Good night, Harry. Notice, he lets Harry go on just long enough to get enough information to start to think. Okay, pause for a moment. We've got 20 minutes left. What do you know about J.K. Rowling's marital history?
She has a history of divorce, right?
Say that
She
again?
has a history of divorce, right?
Well, she has one. Okay. Before she married her current husband, who she married a long time ago. I mean, 2001, 2002, something like that.
It was her oldest daughter's father, right?
Her daughter, Jessica, her eldest child's father. Okay. She did her degree work, University of Exeter. Moved to Portugal, became a translator, I think, for Amnesty International. Okay. Met a dashing young Portuguese journalist. If you're familiar with this actor, think Antonio Banderas when he was in like his 20s or early 30s. All right. Really good looking, Latin, all that kind of stuff. Whirlwind romance. 3 months, I think it was, and they were married. I mean, it's pretty quick. She gets pregnant, not immediately, but I'm pretty sure she gets pregnant, and within about 6 months he ditches her, files for divorce. Yes.
Is this the first or the second year?
First marriage. She's still married to her second husband. Happily, because, she's worth billions and he'd be a damn fool to let her go. I'm sure there's a prenup there somewhere. He leaves. She's now a single mother raising her daughter and such. Parallel?
Definitely.
I mean, there is a clear parallel. Does that mean we have to read this as, J.K. Rowling is kind of Merope? No, doesn't mean that at all. But what it does show is, I mentioned before, kind of keep a mental track, or if you want to keep a written track, of functional and dysfunctional families within the novels. Because by the time we get to the end, Harry is going to self-identify with 2 other children of dysfunctional families. He's not going to identify with Ron. He's not going to identify with Neville. Neville's not a function of a dysfunction. Neville's family is dysfunctional in the sense that his grandmother is his grandmother. If Neville's parents hadn't been tortured into insanity by Bellatrix, he would be part of a loving family. And you get the impression the rest of his family is loving. I mean, you treat him like the bumbling doofus that he is, but anyways. Okay? Just look at Merope and look at Rowling's background, because she's going to do some things with Merope and Tom Riddle Sr. and Voldemort later on. Okay? Hermione's Helping Hand, chapter 11. I'd hope to get us up through like page 420 something today. I think we're only going to get to, if we even get this far, to about 3:30. Hermione's Helping Hand. What is it? Hold that. No, I'm going to skip that. Page 235 or so in this chapter. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are talking about school and what happened when they first arrived at Hogwarts. And Harry finds out everybody else was wanded. Not wanded, but like metal detected. Dark secrecy sensors were waved over people as they came into school. Why? We're told, when they mention that, Harry says, "Were you?" "I wasn't." Hermione. It is Hermione, right? "Oh, no, of course you weren't. I forgot. You were late." "Well, Filch ran over all of us with secrecy sensors when we got into the entrance hall. Any dark object would have been found." Okay. Why wasn't Harry?
Because he was late.
Because he was late and Snape walked him up. So, why wasn't Harry? All the other students were wanted. Why didn't Snape have Filch go over Harry? Plot reason.
I don't believe he would, and he can't be imperious, so.
Okay. But what are they looking for? They're looking for... Yeah, I think it's safe. Yeah, take that back. Who in here has not read book 7? Show of I'm put them up. That's fine. Okay, I won't say it then. Has something to do with dark objects.
Oh. I figured it
For those
was
of you who
that,
know what I'm
but
talking
no.
about, you know, it has something to do also with the end of book 2. Dumbledore tells Harry about Voldemort, and Voldemort transferred some of his powers, and Harry rephrases that. I won't say anything else, okay? So, chapter 12, Silver and Opals. What's the title referred to? What are the silver and opals of the title? Necklace that somebody gives to Katie Bell
To give to Dumb.
in Hogsmeade to give to Dumbledore, and she touches them and she's put under the spell. Who has seen that necklace before? Harry, back at Borgin and Burke's when he was spying on Malfoy. Okay? So, I'm skipping a bit. We find out also in that chapter, kind of early on, 240 or so, Harry's talking with Ron and Hermione about his textbook, right? The one that he got from the shelf that has all kinds of written spells in it. And Hermione says, well, the person was probably a dark wizard. And Harry's like, really? What budding Death Eater is going to put half-blood as part of his name? Who's going to self-identify as a half-blood if you're a Death Eater? Even if you were a half-blood, you wouldn't admit it, is his point. Okay? A couple pages after that, 240, 241, 243 or so, we get the first instance in any of the novels where we see the phrase, and it may not be important, I think it is, thank God. In book 1, I believe it is, Hagrid says, just like Ron says it here, Hagrid says this, and it's spelled this way, because it's showing us Hagrid's dialect. All right? From this point on, we're going to start hearing this a lot more. What's the importance? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a phrase like, thank God, Jesus, Christ. When somebody, says, what's that called? Not an interjection. I can't think of the word. An exclamation of sorts, when someone says, Jesus Christ, they don't mean, help me Jesus. They're offering some other kind of phrase, okay? It might be like that. Or it might be the indication that there's something more, because we are going to see it again more and more and more in the rest of this and in book 7. Go on. So, what does Harry assume about the opal and the silver and opals?
Malfoy had something to do with
Malfoy has something to do with it. He wants to talk to Dumbledore. McGonagall says Dumbledore's not available because he's not here right now. All right. So he goes on, next chapter, Secret Riddle, another lesson with Dumbledore. All right. This is his second. And Dumbledore begins it on page 259, 260. He says, "You'll remember that we left the tale of Lord Voldemort's beginnings at the point where the handsome blah, 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 blah." In other words, he kind of gives them a brief rehash. Okay? And he talks about Mary being left in London pregnant. Harry, how do you know she was in London? Why wasn't she at home? Why didn't she go home after Tom Riddle left her? Well, describe home.
Her father was there, he just got out of Azkaban.
Okay.
Is there a brother there too?
His brother would be there a while later because he served a
3-year sentence.
3-year sentence in Azkaban. Her father only served a 6-month time. So, Dumbledore says, because of the evidence of one Caractacus Burke. Name ring a bell? Not the Caractacus, Burke. Borgin and Burks, okay? Pawn shop dealer. So, brings up a memory, and we hear Caractacus Burke. What did Mary pawn? The locket. What locket? Book 7. Book 7, the British edition, has the locket on the cover. Okay? Salazar Slytherin's locket. This thing's like 1,000 years old. Wouldn't matter if it belonged to Salazar Slytherin or Joe Blow from, Pokemon or whatever. It's 1,000 years old. It's worth something. It's an heirloom. Okay? So, how much did he give for it? 10 galleons. $10. Harry, he gave her only 10 galleons? Like, what a cheap SOB. He was not known for his generosity. So, he tells Harry, now what do we know? We know Mary was in London near the end of her pregnancy. Why? Because that's what Caractacus Burke said. He said, how did he put it? She was pretty far along. That much was obvious, covered in rags, pretty far along, going to have a baby, see? Like she was nearly 9 months. Okay? Harry, but she could do magic. Why pawn off something like that when she could, what's Harry assuming? If you can do magic, you can do what?
Save her life.
Save your own life? Make things magically appear? I mean, isn't that what muggles would think? Why does Hagrid say there's a Ministry of Magic? Book 1? To keep the magical world secret from muggles because they would want magical solutions to all their problems. Harry, I mean, she could have got food and everything for herself by magic, couldn't she? What's Harry assume? I'm hungry. Chick-fil-A. Without waiting in line. What do we hear from Hermione, book 7? Gonna give a little thing away, it's not important. You can't make food appear out of thin air.
She could have stolen it though. But she has magic, she could have gotten rid of it.
She could have.
Like
song going to like a
Or you open the door to, I don't know, nice
Like someone's
5-star
name just starts
restaurant.
flowing.
So,
Just make it like, just go into the back of the kitchen, so you got a snake while
So-
no one's looking.
so Dumbledore says, maybe she could. Notice he doesn't correct him. But it's my belief that when her husband left her, she stopped using magic. Why? He says, 2 possibilities. I do not think she wanted to be a witch anymore. Why? He doesn't answer this part. Was it because of her being a witch that Tom Riddle left her? Could be. Could be she's the daughter of the tramp, you know. She lived in a hut compared to Tom Riddle, who lived in a big, fancy manor house. Okay? Or, Dumbledore says, maybe it was her unrequited love. And it did what? The attendant despair, right? You love someone, they don't love you. You walk around with a big, happy, smiley face all the time, right? No! You're full of despair. No hope. Why? Because there's no hope for love. It did what? It sapped her of her powers. So Dumbledore seems to be saying there, despair will do what to a magician or a witch or wizard? It'll take your powers away. Kind of implies the opposite then. If you have hope, you'll have your powers. Does it imply if despair comes from lack of love, does being full of love mean you'll have more power, greater strength? Dumbledore's going to tell Harry this book, and I think he said it he did say it in the previous book. Harry has 2 things Voldemort doesn't have. He has a power Voldemort does not understand or have, which is love. And he has some kind of skill that Voldemort doesn't have. Okay? The prophecy refers to the skill and such. Harry, she wouldn't even stay alive for her son? Could you possibly be feeling sorry for Lord Voldemort? No, says Harry quickly. Why does he say it quickly? Why doesn't he pause and think about it for a little bit?
Because of how bad Voldemort is, he doesn't want.
Do you feel sorry for Satan? There have been some fathers in the church who actually did feel sorry for Satan, and they said, Christians should pray for Satan. And others kind of went, what? Okay. Harry responds so quickly because Harry's in the position he is because of Voldemort. But I think there's another reason. Hamlet says about his mother, methinks the lady doth protest too much. And what is meant by that is she's overly protesting. By overly protesting, what are you really saying? Yes, yes, yes. He protests so quickly because he is feeling sorry for Voldemort. That's Dumbledore's point. Okay? But she had a choice. Dumbledore says, your mother had a choice too. Right? What did Voldemort say? Stand aside, you silly girl. Move. Stand aside. She chose not to. So, they go on. Dumbledore takes Harry into another memory. This one is his. And where do they go? I thought you mouthed something. The orphanage where Voldemort was raised. Who runs the orphanage? Mrs. Cole. Why do I have C-O-A-L? Because she's like a piece of coal. She's hard. She's flinty. She's not nice. She's not warm and fuzzy. This is a very Dickensian, Charles Dickens, image. Okay? Why does he take Harry here? And we've only got about a minute left. Because this time we see young Tom Riddle for the first time. And I'm going to skip a bunch. What do we see about him? They come back out, and Dumbledore kind of goes, okay, Harry, now let's go over the points. What did you just learn? How well did Tom Riddle take to hearing he was a wizard? Oh, that makes sense. And Harry's like, it took me a while to believe that. Why doesn't it take him? Because he thinks he's special. Okay? What else? He can already do magic without a wand. That's indicating the power that he has. Okay? What else? How does he treat his orphanage mates? I don't know what you call them. His fellow orphans.
Not very well.
Not great.
He terrorizes them. He torments them. What does he do with one of their pets?
Kills them.
Indicating what? Every serial murderer, if they're caught and interviewed, they always admit, how does it start? Oh, where's my cat? My cat's missing. Maybe it's the little sick kid who lives next door who tortures things. Okay? They torture and kill and dismember and maim animals. What else does he have that every serial murderer does? By the way, trophies. Okay? So before Dumbledore allows him to come to Hogwarts, what must he do?
Get rid of his tree.
Restitution. Not get rid of, return to the rightful owners. You can't bring the rabbit back, but, okay.
Here's your dead rabbit.
Yeah, here's your dead rabbit. Enjoy.
Appreciate that. That's so weird.
So, they go on, last minute, shoot, we're over. We're going to talk about the last page of chapter 13, and then go on. Tuesday, believe it or not, we got to finish, because we got to get into Deathly Hallows. So, finish the book. We'll skip a lot, and we're going to really jump towards later chapters.
Deathly Hallows longer than this?
I think it's.
It might be a little bit longer. I don't think it is, but all the loose threads are tied together.